The following story, drawn from Islamic tradition, recounts one of the legendary episodes linked to the figure of Nimrod, the tyrant who opposed the prophet Abraham. It is a story rich in symbolism, illustrating the ruler's arrogance, his desire to challenge the Creator, and the fragility of human beings before divine power. This narrative, transmitted through various exegetical sources, shows how the attempt to rise above human limits inevitably leads to fear, confusion, and ultimately downfall. If you are ready to experience this adventure, let's begin. And now we return to the story of the enemy of God, Nimrod, and to what befell him in his earthly life, his rebellion against God the Most High, and the respite God granted him, for he was the first tyrant on earth. The episode of his attempt to burn Abraham has already been mentioned. Nimrod expelled Abraham, peace be upon him, from his city and swore that he would seek the God of Abraham. He then took 4 young vultures and raised them with meat and wine until they grew and became strong. He tied them to a chest, sat inside it, and took with him a man who carried meat to feed them. The birds took flight with him, and when they had risen very high, he looked down at the earth and saw the mountains moving like ants. Then he lifted the meat even higher, and looking at the earth, he saw it surrounded by the sea, like a ship in the water. He continued to ascend until he found himself in darkness and could no longer see either above him or beneath him. Frightened, he threw the meat away. The vultures then plunged downward following it. When the mountains saw them approaching in a dive and heard the rustling of their wings, they were terrified and nearly trembled, but they did not move. This is the meaning of the word of the Most High, and indeed their plot was such that it could have made the mountains vanish. Their flight began from Jerusalem, and they landed upon Mount al-Dukhan, the smoke. When he saw that he could accomplish nothing, he began constructing the tower and built it until it rose high. He climbed to its top, intending to look, according to his claim, at the God of Abraham. And he relieved himself there, for he claimed that he had never defecated. But God destroyed their construction from its foundations, from the base of the tower, and it collapsed. On that day the tongues became confused out of terror, and they spoke in 73 languages, whereas before that the language of mankind had been Syriac. This is how it has been narrated, that he never defecated. But this is meaningless, for human nature has never been devoid of such a function in any human being, not even the prophets, may God's prayers be upon them, though they are more connected to the higher world and possess nobler souls. Yet they eat, drink, urinate, and defecate, and if anyone were to be exempt from this, the prophets would be the most deserving of such exemption due to their nobility and closeness to God the Exalted. As for the claim that this was due to the vastness of his kingdom, the truth is that he never possessed an independent sovereignty. And if he had ruled independently, Alexander would have had a kingdom far greater than his, and yet nothing of this sort has ever been said about him. Zayd ibn Aslam said, God, the Exalted, sent to Nimrod after Abraham an angel who called him to God 4 times. But he refused and said, Is there any God besides me? The angel then said to him, Gather your armies in 3 days. So Nimrod gathered his armies. God opened upon them a gate of mosquitoes, and when the sun rose, they could not see it because of their vast number. God sent them upon them, and they devoured them until nothing was left but bones. As for the king, he remained untouched, unharmed by anything. Then God sent against him a mosquito that entered his nostril. He remained like that, striking his own head with hammers, and the most merciful person toward him was the one who would bring his hands together and strike his head with them. His reign lasted 400 years, and then God, the Exalted, caused him to die. He was the one who built the great elevated structure, the tower. And a group said, Nimrod, son of Canaan, ruled the east and the west. But this is a statement rejected by those who know the stories and histories of kings. For they do not deny that Abraham's birth took place in the days of Al-Dahak, of whom we have mentioned some accounts earlier, and he was the one who ruled the east and the west. As for the one who says that Al-Dahak, the one who ruled the earth, was Nimrod, this is not correct. For the early scholars mention that the lineage of Nimrod among the Nabateans is known, while the lineage of Al-Dahak among the Persians is well established. Rather, Al-Dahak appointed Nimrod as governor over the Sawad and the regions connected to it on the right and on the left, placing him and his sons in charge of those lands, while he himself moved from one land to another. His homeland, and the homeland of his ancestors, was Dembawand in the mountains of Tabaristan, and it was there that Afrodun cast him when he prevailed over him, just as he did with Bukhtanasar. Some have claimed that he, Nimrod, ruled the entire earth, but this is not so. Instead, he was Ispahbad over the region extending from Al-Ahwaz to the land of the Romans on the western side of the Tigris, on behalf of Hurazb, because Hurazb was occupied with fighting the Turks and was residing opposite them in Balkh. He, Hurazb, built it when his stay there became long due to the war with the Turks. None of the Nabateans ever owned even a span of land independently, let alone the entire earth. The rule of Nimrod in the Sawad lasted 400 years. After his death, among his descendants came a man called Nabat ibn Qaud, who ruled for 100 years, then Kadaus ibn Nabat for 80 years, then Balish ibn Kados for 120 years, then Nimrod ibn Balish for 1 year and 1 month. This amounts to 701 years. He lived during the days of Al-Dahak, and people assumed about Nimrod what we have mentioned. When Afrodun gained power and defeated Al-Azdahak, he killed Nimrod ibn Balish and scattered the Nabateans, carrying out a great massacre among them. And thus ended the tale of Nimrod, the tyrant who dared to challenge the heavens. His long reign, extended for centuries by divine forbearance, led him neither to wisdom nor surrender, but only to an ever greater illusion of his own power. He claimed he could ascend to the sky, gaze upon the God of Abraham, and rule over lands and nations as though nothing could restrain him. Yet everything he built in pride, towers, kingdoms, dynasties, was brought down by the hand of providence itself. The tongues were confused, the peoples scattered, and Nimrod's name, once feared, became a warning for generations to come. Those who followed him inherited only the remnants of a dominion that had never truly been his, and in the end they too were defeated and dispersed as he was. Thus, in the memory of the wise, Nimrod remained not as an invincible ruler, but as the clearest example of what befalls one who seeks to rise above human limits and challenge the Most High. His end was not merely the downfall of a man, but an eternal testimony that no throne built upon arrogance can endure, and that true greatness belongs to God alone.